Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to the fourth political leadership series that the Business Council of Westchester has held since this coronavirus crisis began. Our priority at the Business Council of Westchester is to make sure that the Westchester business community has the opportunity to hear from our political leaders on how New York State is handling this crisis and how the state will reemerge over the next few months. We want to thank our sponsors of this political leadership series: Burke Rehabilitation Hospital, Empire City Casino by MGM Resorts, Levitt First Insurance, and Greenberg Treurig. We very, very much appreciate your support and thank you very much. And we also want to invite our audience to submit questions through our chat room or through the question and answer box. We're very excited that Westchester County began the reemergence process on Tuesday, and we are now in phase 1 stage, which includes construction, manufacturing, wholesale supply chain, and selected retail with mainly curbside pickup. Since the coronavirus crisis began, our guest today, New York State Attorney General Letitia James and her office, have worked to ensure that all New Yorkers' rights are being protected. The Attorney General's office has always played a pivotal role in setting policy that affects both the private and the public sector. Now more than ever, the Attorney General will be engaged in many important programs as New York's business community begins to reopen. It's my pleasure now to turn this over to John Ravitz, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of the Business Council of Westchester, to introduce Attorney General James.
Thank you very much, Marcia. Good morning, everyone. Again, hoping everyone's families and employees are safe. We are very excited to have the Attorney General with us today. Let me give you a little information about her wonderful career. Letitia James is the 67th Attorney General for the state of New York. With decades of work, she is an experienced attorney and public servant with a long record of accomplishment. She is the first woman of color to hold statewide office in New York and the first woman to be elected New York State Attorney General. In 2013, Ms. James was elected public advocate for the city of New York and became the first woman of color to hold citywide office. As public advocate, Ms. James served as a watchdog over New York City government agencies and as an advocate for the city's most vulnerable communities. She transformed the public advocate's office to be a formidable engine of change. Her office handled over 32,000 constituent service complaints and passed more legislation than all previous advocates combined. Ms. James successfully took on the gun industry by pushing New York City's largest pension fund to divest from gun and ammunition retailers. She fought in court on behalf of children and families on issues including children in foster care, children with disabilities, and tenant protection. New York overwhelmingly elected Ms. James to a second term as public advocate in 2017. And prior to serving as public advocate, Ms. James represented the 35th Council District in Brooklyn in New York City Council for 10 years. She began her career as a public defender at the Legal Aid Society. A proud Brooklynite, she is the graduate of Lehman College and Howard University School of Law. On a personal note, I met Attorney General James for the first time as a second-term assembly member. I was the ranker on the Corporations Commission, and the chair was Assembly Member Al Vann, and Ms. James was his general counsel and chief of staff. And before each of the committee meetings, she would brief me on the bills, and as I would debate the bills in committee, she would always give me that look like, time's up, stop. And so she kept the process moving, but she was a great resource for me as a legislator back then. And I followed her career ever since, and I'm very proud to see that she is now the Attorney General for the state of New York. So Attorney General James, thank you for your career and your dedication to New York. Thank you for the work that you're doing for all New Yorkers and for the business community, and the floor is yours. Oh, you just have to unmute. There you go.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can.
Very good. It is so great to see you, Assemblymember Ravitz. I admire you so much. I admired you in the assembly. I admired you when you debated, and I admired you as the ranking on the Committee for Corporations and Authorities and Commissions. It's an honor to see you, and thank you so much for this invitation. I also want to thank Dr. Marsha Gordon for being such an outstanding champion of business and the economic development here in Westchester County and throughout the state of New York. And I really want to congratulate Westchester for flattening the curve as you reopen. And as we reopen again slowly, again, consistent with the data, consistent with evidence, and consistent with the facts. I recognize that a number of businesses are struggling right now, but I think our number one priority is ensuring that the residents of Westchester are healthy and that the businesses of Westchester get the much needed assistance that they deserve. So my thanks to the entire membership of the Westchester Council of Westchester, especially for those of you who are with us today, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. And I'm so glad we're doing this on Zoom. As you know, we reached a settlement with Zoom, a settlement to protect your privacy and your data, and that's what's really critically important. And I really want to thank all of you for the technology that has made this meeting possible. I know how hard the heavy hand of COVID-19 has landed here in Westchester County. Since the outbreak, more than 32,000 of your neighbors have tested positive and more than 13,000 have lost their lives. And again, let us pray for the 100,000 Americans who've lost their lives as a result of COVID-19. We pray for them. We pray for their families. We pray for their souls. Our thoughts and our prayers are with each and every one of them. And to all of you who have lost loved ones, please continue to be safe. Please continue to exercise social distancing. Please continue to stay at home, and please continue to make sure that we, adhere to all of the executive orders that have been issued by the governor of the state of New York. Please know that the Office of Attorney General is with you. We grieve with you and all of your loved ones. And we also share our gratitude to all of the healthcare workers, the first responders, the delivery people, and so many quiet heroes whose names we do not know, but who have sacrificed for each and every one of you. We pray for them and we thank them and we give them a virtual salute. COVID-19 has also taken a toll on the business community here in Westchester, but through the efforts of your Economic Recovery Task Force and with the help of the governor's recently announced New York Forward Loan Fund, the Business Council of Westchester is fighting back, and you are laying the groundwork to come back strong. Your recovery is also being aided by the over $8 million in grant funds my office has provided to 10 New York cities, including Mount Vernon and White Plains, as part of Cities Rise, the Cities for Responsible Investment and Strategic Enforcement program. Cities will use this grant to launch innovative programs related to housing and strategic code enforcement. The programs aim to transform blighted and vacant or poorly maintained properties through the use of housing and community data from various state agencies. It was a competitive process, and I truly want to thank those counties that were successful in getting those grants. But the best news of all is that because of our first responders, public compliance with social distancing, and the efforts of so many of you, the Mid-Hudson region and Westchester have now been cleared for phase 1 reopening. And as you know, my office is focused on protecting consumers and seniors and marginalized communities who have become targets for price gouging and fake cures and other despicable scams during this crisis. Businesses who unfortunately have taken advantage of the anxiety and the fear that exist. I want to recognize, I know that they are on the line, and that is Gary Brown, who's the attorney in charge of our Westchester office, as well as Allison Spindle, and they are also here. And our office is working remotely from home, but they are available. We are working overtime and primarily focusing on all of the complaints that have been filed in our office. Our Charities Bureau is also providing guidance and answering questions with regards to those charitable organizations and not-for-profits to ensure that they comply with the law as well. I also want to give you a brief overview of some of the steps my office is taking to protect consumers and stop, as I call them, the bottom feeders who are preying upon the most vulnerable here in Westchester. And I first want to let all of you know that our office, again, working with the governor of the state of New York, Governor Cuomo, has done an amazing job, and that is ensuring that stimulus funds are not subject to garnishment. And so we have advised all debt collectors, hands-off garnishment. It's really critically important that it go to those families to put food on their table and to pay their mortgages and to pay their rent. In addition to that, we've been reaching out to small businesses, and we've issued guidance to help them obtain loans through the federal programs PPP. I know that the first tranche that there has been problems, and what we wanted to do is to make sure that there's more transparency and to ensure that the program is provided to local banks and to local community-based organizations, and that we remove a lot of the red tape and the bureaucracy, and so that small, particularly mom and pops, have access to this PPP, and that's what's critically important. In addition to that, we are working with the New York delegation to provide oversight to ensure that PPP is distributed to small businesses and not to major large corporations who have an inside track, and that's what's important. We are in court, and as you know, we've asked the court 2 weeks ago to halt the implementation of the public charge rule, which would deny green cards to immigrants who rely upon public assistance programs, because we believe that this crisis is a humanitarian crisis, and that at this point in time, it's really critically important that individuals, all individuals, have access to safety net programs. We have also provided clear guidance to law enforcement departments, because what we are seeing, particularly in upstate New York, and that is that some landlords are taking matters into their own hand and evicting individuals. They're called self-help evictions. And as you know, the governor has issued a moratorium on evictions. We are also working with the courts. The courts are preparing to reopen softly, a soft reopening. They will continue to do virtual proceedings, and they will continue to only handle those proceedings which are critical, obviously, to the health and the safety and the welfare of New Yorkers at this point. And so we are slowly working with them as they reopen softly. We have issued guidance and highlighted vital resources because we are seeing an increase of domestic violence. It's important that individuals of domestic violence know that they are not alone and that there are programs and services available to them around the clock. We've sent letters to around 35 mortgage servicers, calling upon them to provide relief to homeowners during this critical time. Individuals are having a difficult time paying their mortgages in the midst of this pandemic. We stand in solidarity with New York workers and responded to over 3,400 complaints to our office regarding issues such as, am I an essential worker? Is my business providing sufficient PPE? How does sick leave work? And we have responded again to those complaints as well. We have been, again, we are working with the Department of Health to investigate complaints related to nursing homes that have been ravaged as a result of COVID-19. And a report will be issued shortly with regards to adequate PPE at nursing homes, adequate staff, ensuring that staff members are tested and that individuals are isolated from those who have tested positive. In response to the shortage of PPE, as a result of a seizure, we were able to obtain gloves and protective masks. And so we have donated to the New York State Office of Emergency Management 33,000 gloves and 1,700 protective masks to bolster the state's response to COVID-19. We've also called for expanded treatment, access to PPE, increased funding for safety net hospitals, expanded language access, as well as tracking for marginalized community and more protections for essential workers. It's really important that we protect marginalized and vulnerable populations and that there be equal access to testing sites all throughout the state of New York. We've led a multi-state coalition in filing a motion for a preliminary injunction against the federal administration, the EPA, in regards to their narrowing the scope of the Clean Water Act. It's important that we stand up and defend environmental regulations in the state of New York. And so Right now, we are in litigation to protect our water, protect our air, and to ensure that we have a clean energy as well in the state of New York. We also have stood up and have been leading the way, joining with some allies on protecting reproductive rights, not only in New York, but all across this nation. We have been aggressive in our efforts against those who would engage in these medical scams online, those who are, again, trying to profit off the fear and the anxiety of New Yorkers that are marketing false products, false lotions and motions and false lotions and potions and toothpastes, alleging that these products can cure the coronavirus. Please know that there is no cure, there is no treatment at this point in time. And what we are doing is, again, scanning the internet and a number of online marketplaces to ensure that they rid themselves of these false products. My office, as you know, has received more than 5,700 complaints of price gouging, and we've issued more than 1,500 cease and desist orders. Yesterday, we filed an action against a distributor because we did not really want to focus on mom and pops. We know that some distributors, unfortunately, have marked up prices, and one distributor in particular that we filed an action against yesterday had marked up Lysol disinfectant to the tune where they were selling Lysol, distributing Lysol to a number of retailers in the Bronx and in parts of the city for upwards of $20 a can. And we have filed an action, and we are seeking restitution for those consumers who have been victimized by that distributor. And there was no reason to increase the price. It was really just all about the bottom line. And we have Westchester, the Westchester Regional Office, again, under the leadership of Gary Brown and Allison Spindell, have issued more than 100 cease and desist orders to local businesses to address price gouging on a variety of products such as hand sanitizers, disinfectant wipes, and bleach, toilet paper, and paper towels. We have demanded online marketplaces remove items due to price gouging. We've been working with Amazon and Google and Facebook and eBay and Walmart and Overstock and others to ensure retailers and third-party retailers are not engaging in selling these fraudulent products. We've recommended the removal of fraudulent products on Craigslist that are advertised as providing immunity for coronavirus or that could test for the disease. We've also called on fraudsters to stop the marketing of COVID-19 cures and remedies. And on May 20th, we issued a cease and desist letter to a spa in Yonkers that was making bogus marketing claims through its website and on social media about therapeutic regimens that either prevent or treat COVID-19. We've asked them to remove all misleading and false claims. And we have taken action to protect New York consumers fighting for membership freezes, refunds and credits and cancellations at Lucille Roberts, New York Sports Club, including the 9 New York Sports Club in Westchester County. And hopefully we will have some news to report on that. I want to leave you with one simple message. There may not be a vaccine for the coronavirus, but there is one price gouging and other scams. It's called a public awareness and personal vigilance information and law enforcement action. Let me also go on to say my last comment, and I did not mention this, and that is a number of businesses have reached out to me with regards to their insurance policies and insurance companies, which unfortunately are not adhering to the policy in regards to business interruption. And so we are looking at individual insurance policies, and we are reviewing claims. And I would hope that if anyone has a complaint, that they reach out to our Westchester office. I want all of you to know that we're going to get through this together. When we come out on the other side of the mountain, we're going to come out stronger and more united than ever before. I want to thank your great executive leader, John, for again allowing me to have a few words. I want to thank George Latimer for all that he is doing. I want to thank Dr. Gordon, and I want to thank each and every member who is part of the Business Council And I truly appreciate you allowing me to say a few words. And I think now I'll take a few questions.
Thank you very much, Attorney General James, and we appreciate obviously the incredible amount of work that you and your team have been doing throughout this COVID crisis. I'd love to ask you to expand on yesterday, you and James Johnson, who is the New York City Corporation Counsel, wrote a very powerful op-ed in the Daily News, talking about the battles that seem to be happening in Washington and the states in terms of who has authority. Does the federal government have authority over state government? Could you expand on some of the points you made in the op-ed? And
Sure.
I certainly would encourage everyone on this call to go back to yesterday's Daily News to see that.
So first, let me just say, I'm a church girl. I try to go to church every Sunday. I've been going to church since I was a little girl, and I miss not going to church in person. We have virtual service every Sunday. I go to a church in Brooklyn called Emmanuel Baptist Church under the leadership of Reverend Anthony Trufant. And so it's really critically important that everyone understand that this is not an issue of a liberal, quote unquote, liberal and progressive elected officials being anti-God or anti-religion. It is not. It's really about safety. And it's also about the Constitution. It's important that everyone understand that in our form of government, we have 3 levels of government, and states obviously are responsible for the health and welfare and safety of their residents. The 10th Amendment basically gives New York and other states the ability to pass laws with respect to, again, the safety of their residents. And so with all due respect to the President of the United States, he is really not in a position to determine, to a certain extent, the laws in the state of New York, particularly as it relates to social distancing and as it relates to church gatherings. And so it's important that all of us adhere to the regulations of the governor of the state of New York and follow his lead, and that we all exercise social distancing, and particularly as we worship our faiths. That is so critically important. We all, we believe in God, but our first mandate is to ensure that the children of God be safe. And that is why it's important that, again, we, with all due respect to the President of the United States, understand that each level of government has their role. And our role right now is to keep New Yorkers safe.
Thank you. I also want to acknowledge George Lentz, who is our chair of our Government Action Council, and the work that he's done to help us with our legislative agenda. Also, a special shout out to you, Attorney General, from one of our board members, Mark Weingarten, and just congratulating you on the work that you've been doing, as we all do. We've been contacted by a few businesses who have talked about the struggle that being away from their offices and the postal system having obviously delays and basically not getting their invoices or bills in on time. We've gotten some reports from our members about a few major corporations who are jacking up their interest rates up to, say, 30% for unpaid balances. Is there anything that you can do about this? Obviously, reaching out to some of these corporations, or maybe you've already been aware of this and are already implementing some actions on this.
So again, our office is driven by complaints. And in any business that has any individual complaint should reach out to our Westchester office under the leadership of Gary Brown. And if the Business Council can provide our number to your members, that would be greatly appreciated. We will look at every complaint, we will investigate every complaint, and we will make a decision as to whether or not we should pursue it and whether or not there are any valid claims. And that's what we do in the office of the Attorney General. One, we would determine whether or not there's any pattern and or practice, and or whether or not there's any individual issue that our consumer advocates can resolve through mediation.
Thank you. We will keep in touch. And again, the strong line of communication that the Business Council of Westchester has for our members with your office is one that we will continue to work with Gary and Allison on, and we appreciate their support as well. Attorney General James, we're very proud at the Business Council of Westchester that we have over 130 non-for-profits as members. And we always talk about the fact that non-for-profits are economic engines. They create jobs, they deliver revenue, as well as doing the incredible essential services that they provide. Your office plays a very pivotal role in the not-for-profit community. In the last few moments that we have with you, can you share some of the programs that you're doing post-COVID or pre-COVID, and also as you've been helping not-for-profits through the COVID period as well?
Yeah, thank you. So yesterday we did a Zoom teleconference similar to this with our Charities Bureau. And as you know, we have jurisdiction over all not-for-profits in the state of New York. You have to register with our Charities Bureau. It's really critically important that we ensure that individuals who contribute to charities know that they are going for a specific purpose, and that individuals who lead organizations are doing it in compliance with the law. Now, some of the concerns yesterday that were expressed on the teleconference were, how do we comply with a number of the regulations in this COVID-19 atmosphere? And so some of the regulations have been relaxed. A significant number of the regulations as it relates to not-for-profits are online. It's important that there are a number of not-for-profits out there who claim to be legitimate that are not legitimate, who unfortunately have taken advantage of the anxiety in this crisis. There are a number of GoFundMe accounts that are not legitimate at all we are looking at. And we are looking at a number of organizations that claim to assist individuals in applying for PPP, assist them in applying for stimulus grants, assist them in a wide range of areas, and assist individuals in getting stimulus money, when in fact we all know that they are fraudulent, and no government agency would ask for your personal information and your social security. So it's important that everyone be vigilant. It's important that everyone be aware that there are a significant number of individuals trying to take advantage of this pandemic. But our Charities Bureau is available to ask any particular questions and to ensure that you are complying with this law and that you are filing the necessary paperwork as required by law. We are trying to do everything virtually, and we are trying to provide guidance to all not-for-profits in the state of New York. And so our office, under the leadership of Mr. Sheenan, is doing a wonderful job.
We have one more question, and this one I'm very curious about too, because as you know, I was the former executive director of the New York City Board of Elections. Our elections in June in the primaries and also November could be totally different. Would love to get your thoughts on the idea of everyone being able to vote by mail and the role that your office might have to play. But moving forward, as somebody who's been a candidate and has had to run in elections, your feelings on what we might have to do in this November election.
Listen, voting is an essential part of democracy. It's critical to our functioning democracy. It's really critically important that individuals exercise that right. And so under the leadership of our governor, he has mailed out absentee ballots, no excuse absentee ballots to all individuals in the state of New York. And I hope that you received your ballot. If you have not, you should ask for it. We want to exercise that fundamental right. At the same time, we want to make sure that all of us are safe and secure. But on June 23rd, we do have a primary. So you can vote by absentee ballot or you can vote in person. The polls will still be open. In addition to that, as you know, we do still have elections in November and September and in November as well. But everyone can now vote by absentee ballot. I wish that we could just all vote by absentee ballot. I do not believe that it favors one party or another. I believe that everyone has a responsibility and a duty to exercise that fundamental and critical right, particularly at this point in time. And another point, it's also important that everyone take time out of their busy schedules to fill out the census. The census is so critically important to our democracy. It ensures that we have a representation in Congress, a fair representation. And as you know, we send more money to Washington than we get back. And at this point in time, when we are hoping and praying that the federal government provide relief to the state and municipalities and government all through over the state of New York, it's all tied to the census. And right now, our response rate is around 52% for the state of New York, which is relatively low. We need to increase those numbers. We need to make sure that everyone fill out the census. Our office was successful in removing the citizenship question. They basically ask you identifying information and it will take you less than 2 minutes. The form is online. The forms should have been mailed to your home. So in addition to filling out the absentee ballot, you can also take time to fill out the census and fulfill your responsibility and your duty as a citizen and as a resident of the great state of New York.
Attorney General James, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you for the work you and your office continue to do. Before I turn it back over to Marcia to close out the program, I do want to remind our members that our political leadership series will continue over the next few weeks. Please be on the lookout for our next guest, which will be the Speaker of the New York State Assembly, Carl Hastie. We also will have the leadership team from the Metro North senior management team. And then on June 16th, we will be doing a live debate with the candidates running for the congressional district, the Nita Lowey seat in the 17th congressional district. Lieutenant James, Attorney James, thank you again. I'm going to turn it over to Marcia to close out, and wishing everybody a good day and stay safe.
Be safe, everyone.
Thank you so much, Attorney General. You are an amazing leader. You look out for the citizens of New York and the businesses, and we thank you for everything you do. And we're with you. We're all in this together.
I really appreciate it.
One more event I want to mention. We do have our People's United Bank leadership series on Monday at 1 o'clock, and we have 5 great entrepreneurs who will share their entrepreneurial journeys with you. So please join us then. Also, so much going on at the Business Council Westchester. Thank you all for attending virtually on Facebook, and we wish everyone good health and be safe. Have a great day.